today reviewing the Mexican Grand Prix, and oh boy, what a race we have to review. Lando Norris taking a dominant win from pole position and taking the championship lead in the process by the grand total of 1 point with 4 races and 2 sprints left to go in the season. Charles Leclerc finishing second for Ferrari. Max Verstappen recovering to get a podium in P3. Previous championship leader Oscar Piastri getting back a couple of positions on his qualifying spot, but just P5 for him here. Sam, this was 2 stops, 1 stops, overtaking everywhere. You asked before, will this be the longest review we've ever done? We'll soon find out.
We got a flipping title fight on our hands, folks. It's happened. It's juicy. It's spicy. Mexico delivered. There's a lot of controversy coming out of this Grand Prix. There's a lot of talking points. Some things I think we won't agree on. Some things I think we will. We've had, that feeling where you wake up on Boxing Day, or rather on Christmas Eve. And you're like, oh, it's Christmas. Father Christmas has come. And actually you realize, oh no, it hasn't happened. You have the biggest amount of disappointment. That was the VSC at the end of that Grand Prix. We'll get into that later as well. Absolute hell. Haters of fun of the stewards. But yeah, there's a lot to talk about. That might be in 3 hours' time with how many things we've got to talk about.
I personally love waking up on Boxing Day. It's my favourite day of the year to wake up on.
I don't think you do wake up on Boxing Day.
Let's try to sleep through the whole thing. It's a pleasure to be here. Wasn't sure I was going to make it. I've made it, guys. So
did the race sway you? Were you like on the fence and then this race happened, or like, I'm going to be here for this?
Gotta be there.
I was at a roast dinner all afternoon. Wasn't sure what I was going to make.
All afternoon? Were you cooking it?
Big roast.
I was eating it. But I've made it, guys, so don't worry.
I think it was Fernando Alonso's Nacho Libre helmets that brought you on, to be honest.
Nando Libre.
Yeah, that mask is sensational.
More sensational than the race he had. Sorry, Aston Martin, we're probably not going to get to you until at least 4 hours into this review. We have plenty to discuss. We've got driver of the day, worst driver of the day, big brain strategy all coming up. We'll review our ever successful bold predictions. Everything to do with Bearman's 4th place finish. We haven't even mentioned that yet. A record day for him and a record equaling day for the Haas team with that P4 finish. But let's start out front with Lando Norris taking victory by, I don't know what it was in the end, like half a minute separating him and Charles Leclerc. This was a walk in the park. At least he made it look that way, Sam. How impressed were you with what he was able to do? We have seen before when he's taken pole position, he hasn't necessarily been able to convert that. But on a day where he could theoretically claim the championship lead, it's exactly what's happened. He nailed it.
Wow. Wow. You barely saw him on screen because it was just wow from Lando Norris. We've given Lando Norris stick throughout this season. And, throughout the last couple of years where he's maybe bottled some obvious chances. He's throwing away some key moments. He didn't take the championship fight to Max last season like maybe we expected. But core blimey, striker lighting, no mistake. That was some absolute sensational drive from Lando Norris. You know those days where we're like, he really just needs one of those races where everything just kind of falls into place. There's no drama. It all kind of goes his way. All of the drama happened. And Lando Norris was about 8 years in the future. So he already knew where it was and what was going on. He didn't have to worry about anything at all. Turn 1 was as scary as it could have got, 4 wide, and he breezed through it. Didn't run off the track, didn't really make proper contact with each other. Everyone to the left of that guy was in flames. Who knows what was going on back there? Just hope everyone got through okay. And Lando is kind of dum-da-dum-da-dum, off we go. 34-second victory over Charles Leclerc, who was arguably saved by that BSC. This was the drive of a possible champion. This is the best I think I've ever seen Lando Norris. And it's a crying shame he couldn't get that Grand Slam because I think George Russell picked up the fastest lap, which is amazing that he was 34 seconds clear, led every single lap and didn't pick up the fastest lap. But nonetheless, this is the way to take it to your teammate who's struggling in form. This is the way to shut down the form of Max Verstappen. And this is the way to assert yourself as the new championship leader. The first time, I think, in 15 rounds that we've had a new championship leader. So what a way to take the fight right at the end of this season. 1 point between them. Just sublime from Lando Norris.
Harry, the same question for you. What did you make of Lando Norris's performance? But just to throw something else in there as well. So much of the discussion recently has been about Max Verstappen and the momentum he's had trying to chase down championship leader Oscar Piastri. Do you think Lando Norris has maybe benefited the last few rounds from just not being forgotten, but maybe being the driver of the top three that's been spoken about the least?
Honestly, yes. And you can tell by his demeanor throughout the weekend. He's been so calm in a way that, I mean, not in a way we've seen for a while in terms of Lando Norris, but definitely not in a way we've seen him in the past couple of years when he's been, trying to fight for a world championship. I think it has somewhat taken the pressure off him with all the chat about Verstappen, because his attitude this weekend has been so cool, calm, and collected, which is a phrase we've used a lot about his teammate this year and not Norris. But it has been. I think I've been super impressed by Norris after qualifying yesterday. He was so relaxed and was sort of joking about, I'll just see how much I can win it by tomorrow. A lot is the answer. But yeah, I really do think that because all the pressure's been on Piastri, whether it's been coming from Verstappen or himself, it's all piling onto him. And Norris is almost not snuck under the radar. We haven't forgotten about him, but he has the momentum. He sees that momentum away from his teammate and from Verstappen somewhat. I know Verstappen took him third, but sees it away from both of them this race with a dominant victory. So I was super impressed by Norris. I'm not sure where it lands in my top Lando Norris wins yet, but it's definitely up there. He wasn't under any pressure, but that in itself was a mark of a great drive. You're right, Sam. He held off what was the most dramatic moment at turn one. There haven't been many drivers who have won from pole position here for quite some time, so that in itself is pretty good stuff from Norris. And yeah, what a moment to do it, but also what a way to do it as well. Because I think that in itself shouldn't be forgotten. Yes, he's taken the championship lead away, but to do it in that fashion is psychologically quite a big step for him. So very impressive, and what a championship we are having. There was one point this year I was like, it's going to be a bit of a boring one, but no. Just buckle up, folks. So the next few races could be a wild ride. Yeah, exactly. Sam putting on a seatbelt there.
And rightly so. This could be an interesting one with plenty more points up for grabs in these 4 rounds to go. And as mentioned, 2 of those 4 are sprint weekends, so more points available. Those 2 at Brazil and Qatar that are upcoming. Harry, you were very careful, and I think rightfully so, to say that this was one of Lando Norris's best victories in F1, but you don't want to get caught up in the moment. You don't want to be a prisoner of the moment and just come out and say that was his best win. But I am going to do that. That was his greatest win so far. And you know what? I will go a step further than that. This isn't careful. This isn't prudent from me at all. But I think that was the best performance we have seen all season from anyone. That was phenomenal. And I'm talking the full weekend here. He had this in hand on Friday afternoon. He was so far clear of everyone else in the long runs on practice in FP2, and he fully converted that in the race today. It is a scary turn one, even after such a brilliant pole position by a quarter of a second yesterday. It was 4 wide. He navigated that brilliantly well, and you never felt like he was going to be in danger from the cars behind. Leclerc stuck within 2 or 3 seconds early on, never got any closer than that, and as soon as Norris needed to extend the advantage, he played it perfectly. He was in a position as well, and credit to McLaren the way they did this strategically, and we'll get onto this a lot more with some other drivers. The soft compounder tyre was so much better than the medium and the hard tyre. You wanted to be on that soft tyre as long as you possibly could be. And the way in which Norris dictated that first stint meant that he could do a full 50% of this race on that soft tyre to get him way out of danger from anyone else. He was over a pit stop clear by the time he needed to come into the pits for the medium tyre, and he dictated it from there. This was utterly dominant, and I do, as the question was posed to Harry, I do think that the pressure on Norris that seems to have lessened recently as a result of more attention going on Piastri and Verstappen, I think that has helped him a great deal. I will warn you, Lando Norris, that deal is over now. These next 4 races, I think that the spotlight will be firmly back on you. But this was an utterly phenomenal performance from Lando Norris. And I can only say I'm disappointed that at the end of the race, he didn't get the adulation and the cheers he deserved for such a brilliant race, and instead was received by boos. I know that people's opinions differ on whether booing should be accepted or not in motorsport, in sport more widely. I don't like it in F1, particularly at the end of the Grand Prix where it's all said and done. If you don't, if you don't appreciate a driver, I would say just don't say anything rather than outright boo him out the stadium. I'm not sure about this, but it felt like they might have lessened the crowd volume during the podium celebration versus when he was spoken to by James Hinchcliffe straight after. I was disappointed in that because I think this was a performance that deserved a lot of cheers.
They were all saying boo words.
Oh, that F1 driver, yeah.
Did you see that F1 TV had a sudden issue with their post-race broadcast and they couldn't carry on, which has not happened all season?
Interesting.
Very interesting. Yeah. Look, I think you can kind of see it in his face, bless him, when he came up on the car for the podium. He kind of put his hands over his ears for a moment. Sad, isn't it? When you pull out a performance like that to not feel like you're being supported. I think what Lando's doing really brilliantly, which I think this would have affected him way more maybe last season, earlier this season even. You've seen a change from him off track. He's bringing his mum and dad regularly to every single Grand Prix, which I think you saw with Lewis Hamilton in his early career. His dad was always there. Every single race, his dad was there with him. When he was with Nicole, he brought Nicole. Of course, Lando has his girlfriend there with him all the time at the moment. It's just creating a space where he can feel safe, he can let go, he can be positive and set his mindset correctly, because having the mindset of a champion is no easy thing. So to have a space which he feels like he can just relax, I think he could then take his best to the racetrack. We've seen that since the summer break. It has stepped up a lot more for Lando since before. So I do wonder if he has reevaluated how he is being supported off track as well as on it.
Let's take a look at the Leclerc versus Verstappen battle that emerged for second place. Different strategies at play here, with Verstappen starting on the medium tyre and going to the soft tyre. Leclerc going against, he started on the soft tyre, but went against some of the others that started on the soft tyre where they all two stopped. Leclerc tried to hold out for that one stop. Ultimately, it pays off. A big question mark as to whether it would have paid off if not for that VSC late on. Harry, should we go all the way back to the start here when it comes to Leclerc's race? Because there was a little bit of controversy in that first corner where he was defending against Lewis Hamilton, one of many drivers to take to the grass. No, I don't think there was any investigation into it, let alone a penalty. Fine with it?
I mean, sure. There was so much it was just, as you said, Sam, it was just fire. Everything was on fire behind Norris at that first corner. We never saw a replay, I don't think, from Leclerc's point of view, or unless I've got that wrong. But
definitely got it from Hamilton's, didn't we? But
yeah,
definitely from Hamilton's, yes. But we never saw. I don't think we ever saw it from Leclerc. So it's a little hard to tell whether he was actually forced or just not going to make turn 2. But we have it so often here at Mexico where that is just that happens. Where, I mean, we were 4 wide going into so well. Quite frankly, how none of them made contact we're pretty thankful that didn't happen at all. So. I understand that one being slightly scared off the road. Obviously, Verstappen was having his own accident separately. How that didn't end up in the war, I don't know either. But it felt like a get out of jail free card. I don't think Leclerc necessarily really needed to take to the grass there, but it's difficult to say because, like I say, I don't think we ever saw a proper replay of it at the time going into turn 1. So I'll let it slide. Apart from Lando Norris, all of that top 4 at that point all decided to have a bit of a moment across the grass at some point in this Grand Prix. So maybe they're like, it's all fair in the end. But it was messy. It was really messy, and it's I think it's a sign of how important track position was going to be in this race. Although I think we saw a bit more overtaking than we were perhaps expecting, but they were desperate to get any position they could going into that first corner because I think they realized how important it was. So I'll let the Leclerc one slide. I think it was probably a bit touch and go. I don't think he necessarily needed to. I think he could have made turn 2 if he needed to, but the fact that all hell was breaking loose around him probably helped him get out of jail free on that one.
Yeah. Tinfoil hat. I don't think that goes the same way if it's Ferrari against another team. I think it might have been a penalty otherwise, but he gets away with it. And with everything that happened behind Leclerc, he was able to scamper away into the distance, which ultimately helped him, you would think, with the Verstappen battle late on. Sam, how did you see the Leclerc and Verstappen battle form?
The fire was taking place against Lando Norris. The stewards should be the ones with the fire extinguisher and doing the actual investigation. The fact that they didn't even get noted, wasn't even looked at. If they come to the conclusion that Leclerc couldn't do anything at all and he was pushed off the racetrack, so they said no penalty, fine by me. I completely disagree with that, if I'm totally honest. I think Leclerc had control of his car. He didn't lock up going to the braking zone. Hamilton left a full car's width on the outside. There would have been space to make that corner. This is a classic case of, it's turn one, lap one. There's a lot going on. We can't really be bothered to go and look at it. He gave up a bit of time going down into turn four. Absolute leg on rubbish. For me, this is at least a 5-second time penalty. Should have given the position back to Lewis Hamilton, who was in front when they got to the apex. And I think this is poor. Once again, I think there seems to be a classic case of if it's teammate versus teammate, unless the team actually press the issue, they don't seem to do anything about it. It would be like in football, soccer to you Americans, if, I don't know, one player ran into another and they got injured, they would go, oh no, don't do any substitutes or anything because both the players are probably going to get up and they'll be all right. But if you did it to the opposing team, they stop the game and give a card. I just think it's picking and choosing when rules apply, and I don't really enjoy it. This is why I think it was so frustrating that penalties were handed out in such bizarre ways. Hamilton getting the 10 for gaining advantage, and whilst I think that was the worst communication of a penalty ever from Adami over Hamilton's radio, I am shocked that Sykes gets a 5 for speeding, which is a safety infringement. Hamilton gets a 10 for trying to go down the world's skinniest off-road, and Leclerc gets no investigation for gaining a position out of track and gaining a bigger advantage than Lewis Hamilton. I just think it's an absolute shambles of a decision from the stewards.
Yeah, I think Leclerc probably should have been penalised. Again, I'd like to see it from Leclerc's on board, but from Hamilton's on board and from the overhead, I think Leclerc was lucky to get away with that one. As it happens, I think Leclerc and Verstappen raced this brilliantly, both of them. Leclerc managed his tyres brilliantly well. Those mediums were not as strong as the soft tyres. And Verstappen equally, what he did in that first stint where he was on the mediums and everyone else around him was on the softs, I kind of felt like he's going through the pain now and he is going to be rewarded for it later on with the podium. And that's just how it played out. Maybe not quite as good a result as it could have been with that second place, but he stuck in there well when it looked like it could unravel for him and he might be at the back of that queue and let all of those other cars sort of go off and do what they need to do on what was the stronger tyre compound at that point. Shall we review some bold predictions? Because this might be quite a quick one. Firstly, Harry, your bold prediction was that you could get on the same flight as both me and Sam from Austin, and you were wrong.
It's the biggest Harry Eagism of all time.
It's a 0 for me there.
Well, don't worry. I'm not gaining any ground on you, mate. I said that both Williams would be in the top 6. There was one retirement and one no point. So I'm going to chalk that down as an L. Sam?
I said there'd be chaos in turn 1, but then I did say that there'd also be 3 safety cars. So a little bit of this, a little bit of that, maybe?
Yeah, 3 safety cars and 1 VSC does not balance out.
Oh, darn. Take the L.
Ultimately, the abacus does not move. None of us got our bold prediction right.
It's frozen over. It's not moved for years.
True. We're also particularly cold at bold predictions when it comes to like Austin time. Like we are terrible at this stage. Yeah. We're like the Oscar Piastri of bold predictions. We just can't do this stretch of the season.
We just go too bold to impress the fans in a live show situation. You know what? We need to simmer down.
We are going to lock them in for the next race. You are going to see a new LB.
3 for 3.
And we now turn our attention to the third of the championship contenders, Oscar Piastri, who until this weekend had the championship lead and at one point had a relatively comfortable championship lead. He now finds himself 1 point behind Lando Norris heading into those last 4 races of the season. Qualified P8, elevated to P7 as a result of Carlos Sainz's grid penalty. Doesn't have a very good start in this race, drops a position, eventually finds his way ahead of the 2 Mercedes and back into 5th, but that's as far as he could get. Harry, we didn't witness the best of races from him in Austin. This one can firmly go in that pile, you think?
Yeah, it was. Look, I think if you look at it from where he was at the end of lap 1, you go, all right, that was an okay recovery, Oscar. But you look at it in the context of the entire weekend and indeed the championship, it's not as stinky as Austin was, but little bit pongy, maybe, rather than
What's the scale here?
I don't know. It was still. I mean, look, it's not great. He's lost the championship lead by. Is it 1 point we've gone for now? Yeah, 1 point. And like I said earlier on, the psychological, I think, repercussions, not to use that word, which is McLaren's favorite word, but the psychological repercussions of such a dominant win from Norris versus what was quite a scrappy damage limitation race from Piastri, I think shouldn't go unmentioned, because the most convincing thing Oscar Piastri did this race was his move against George Russell. I was like, oh, hello, he's still there. He's still with us. Because for the rest of it, it was just a bit like, come on, man, what are you doing? These two races have not been good for Oscar Piastri, full stop. And I know I think we spoke about this in the review of the USGP, and we say it was kind of beneficial that he could just get back on the horse straight away from Mexico. I think now maybe a break is good. Let's just Mark Webber, take him away somewhere, have a little reset. And let's go back. Let's go to Brazil with a clear head, because the last two races he's got in his own head somewhat. I think just the pace difference between him and Norris is there's something there that's not right. Whether that's with the car or with him or both, I don't know. But certainly things have not been going his way, and he's taken such a dent in his championship lead, so much so he doesn't even lead it anymore. So what at one point was looking like not a comfortable win, but what could be a first championship for Oscar Piastri is now very much in doubt, especially with the form that Norris has shown here. So it's going to be a challenging remainder of the season. He's still in it. He's not out. There's only 1 point, but not an ideal day for Oscar Piastri.
Sam, what did you make of Piastri's race?
Flashes in the pan, I think, is the best way that I can really describe this. A lot of the time, it was tough. It was a bit of a grind. It was a bit grueling from him. The start, poor, wasn't able to capitalize on anything around him. And then he's stuck behind the likes of Yuki Tsunoda on the medium tire, the alternate strategy for a while. He's then stuck behind the Mercedes. He gets a slow pit stop, which doesn't help him at all. It sets him even further back. You have to argue that had he not had a slow pit stop come the end of the Grand Prix, maybe the fight with Bearman wouldn't have been so tiresome, so long for him, because it was a real struggle. But then we did have moments where he gets past the Mercedes brilliantly. The overtaking against George Russell is a particular highlight. And I thought that was mighty impressive, the way he keeps away Lewis Hamilton and Max Verstappen in the early stages and then again falls foul. It's kind of, he has these moments, he has these peaks, and then it slumps back down into what is seemingly the worst form he could come upon when he's fighting for this championship win. It's a real tough one, the last two Grand Prix. I mean, he's had some issues, but the last two Grand Prix and then the crashes in Baku, it's a dire run for a guy that's trying to win his first championship, and it's now so close. Harry's right. He needs to go away. He needs to reset. He needs to refresh. I don't know if Daniel Ricciardo needs to call up McLaren and explain there might be a crack in the chassis that they maybe need to look at changing or something like that, because the switch is almost bipolar in its change. It is absolutely flipped on its head, the way that he's gone from dominating, being brilliant in pole position regularly. You know, he's been matched on poles by Lando, and that felt like it was almost like attainable at one point, and now it's there. Something has changed, and I don't think it's just his confidence. I think there is something going on with how he's driving this car, or a package that's been delivered to his car that isn't working the way he expected. But something needs to be addressed in the next 2 weeks. Because if we do want to have a title fight between these two, we actually need Piastri to find that form again. We can't have Lando run off in the last 4 Grand Prix, because that will quickly turn what is a very exciting battle right now into a bit of a dull fest come the last race of the season. So come on, Piastri. We want you to be right there with Lando every single race, because we need it to be a fight right to the end. And we want Verstappen right there with him as well. So fingers crossed we get more early season Piastri than we do last 3 races Piastri.
I often say, like, the worst thing as a racing driver is not being slow. It's being slow and not knowing why. And that feels like where Piastri is at the moment. You listen to what he said post-qualifying. I expect he might say something similar post-race, which is he doesn't have the pace right now, but he can't point at anything in particular and say that's the reason why. Maybe there is something more underlying that you just referenced to, Sam, regarding the chassis, or an upgrade that just hasn't quite worked for his car versus Lando Norris. Or maybe it is just he is having a bit of more of a difficult spell than he's had for the rest of this year. It does happen, but something is not quite right. at this point in time. Doesn't get a brilliant start in this race, increasing the amount of work that he has to do. Doesn't get the best of luck in the first pit stop, but hey, he got good luck in the second one to get ahead of Antonelli, and he was really struggling to get that overtake on Antonelli and George Russell when it was two Mercs directly ahead of him. What that essentially enabled him to do was to cut out that 2v1 scenario. He's now ahead of one of the Mercedes, and he can just attack George Russell one-on-one. If that doesn't happen in the pit stops, who knows? Maybe that second stint just goes the same way that the first stint does, and he never even gets in a position to attack Ollie Bearman as he did quite late on. He just didn't have the pace of his teammate. Simply put, he did not have the pace of his teammate. Even some of his more... some of the clinical moments that we've seen from him earlier on in the season seem to be lacking. I know that overtake on George Russell was brilliant, but there were a few opportunities where you felt like the Piastri of earlier in the season might have been more incisive at getting through the field. As soon as he dispatched Yuki Tsunoda, for example, which took like 10 laps, you felt like he would be on the back of the crew in front straight away. It took a little while to get there. It just wasn't his weekend. Again, I think what you said, Harry, just a bit of an opportunity to reset before a full-on assault for the last 4 races is what he needs right now. I don't know where Mark Webber plans to take him, but make it a good trip, because we need both of these McLaren drivers as well as Verstappen to make this an all-time finish to an F1 season.
I think Slough is a good spot.
Oh
you walk around Slough and he'll go, I've got to win this title, otherwise I might end up here.
Yeah,
this is what you'll have.
Strike fear into his eyes, Mark.
Or Milton Keynes.
Oh, God, no, because we might try Red Bull then, that's a worry.
Piastri's introduced to Butlins at Minehead.
Well, that's not too bad.
Yeah.
Bognor Regis.
Oh, that's the one.
Come on. That's where the real champs go.
All right, Harry, tier list of the Butlins locations in the UK.
And that's why we have Patreon, folks.
To be clear, anyone who wants to consider signing up to Patreon, there is F1 stuff on there. It's not us just ranking Butlins venues, we promise.
Ranking holiday destinations in the UK that we hate.
We've seen a 500% increase in Patreon. What?
Stop. Move on.
Yeah, probably a good idea.
Please.
Because there is another driver that deserves our attention, and that is Ollie Bearman. A lot was made going into this race, and as the race was happening, that he hadn't spent a lap inside the top 6 at all so far in his relatively young F1 career. He had only finished in the points a few times, but after a very good qualifying session where he managed to get to Q3, qualified P10, made P9 as a result of the Sainz penalty, he had an excellent start to this race. He's probably thinking, I'm in for some good points here. And then his afternoon gets even better as a result of the kerfuffle that went on in front of him. He picked the pocket of multiple drivers in better cars than him, and all of a sudden he is fighting for a podium. Now, Sammy doesn't quite end up with that podium, but he isn't a million miles off it in 4th place, matching Haas's best ever finish in F1.
I think a lot of people could come out of this race and say, lucky. He was lucky. And sure, there's always a little bit of luck in these great performances. But Bearman got real pace. That Haas wasn't slow this weekend. You only have to look at where Ocon came from to actually show that the team were moving forward with both cars. But Bearman, wow, what a talent. He finally got the chance to show off what he was really able to do. Ben, you've been raving all season about how actually there's a real driver under there. He just needs the chance to show it. He got the chance. He took it. He showed us all. He really was something special today. The way he went through the turns, 1, 2, 3 complex, where you've got Verstappen in hitting the wall, Leclerc taking off to the grass, Hamilton and Norris almost hitting each other. And suddenly, there's a rogue Ollie Bearman floating around in 4th place. And when Lewis Hamilton decides to have a scamper over the grass, there's a 10-second time penalty. I think we all erupted at the thought of, wait, could Haas actually get a podium? No. He's unfortunately, whilst the biggest winner, I think, of the day, other than maybe Lando Norris, he might also be the biggest loser in terms of what happened with strategy, because I think he was played a little bit by this 1-stop, 2-stop. What's the right choice? What's the right call? The cars all behind him went for the 2-stop, and that meant that he was maybe conned into it a little bit, whereas the cars that kind of stuck it out onto that 1-stop meant that Leclerc and Verstappen actually ending up just slowly pulling away time and time again. And that meant that the dreams of the podium did slip away a little bit. But that P4 in that Haas and holding off the likes of Oscar Piastri, even without the VSC, I think he's got that one in the bag, if I'm totally honest. I think he's bringing it home. what a performance. He can be so proud of him. Bear Dad in his rather fetching pink polo shirt was filled with glee, it appears, in the pit lane. Fair play to him. I'm really glad he's got his moment. It wasn't quite the podium that Hajar got, of course, earlier in the season, but this is still an immense performance from him, and it shows you the level of talent that the rookies have got this season.
I think that pace was very much legitimate. Like, we had a lot of, and we'll get onto the Mercedes battle in a bit, but we had this whole Russell versus Antonelli. Could Russell get ahead of Bearman instead of Antonelli? As soon as that switch happened, nothing happened. Bearman stayed 2 seconds clear of them for pretty much that entire stint. Harry, how impressed were you with what he was able to do?
Yeah, super impressed. And like you said, Ben, I was going to make the same point. I think the pace was, whereas sometimes you might say, oh, it was a bit lucky, circumstantial. And yes, there was some circumstantial, kerfuffle, as you said, happening ahead of him. But he made the most of it. And as you say, picked the pockets of those who were falling off the road. Got to say, the Hamilton-Verstappen thing that was happening, Bearman wasn't fully ahead of all of them at that point. He still went down the inside of Verstappen. I was like, all right, son, you do you. So I was impressed by that. But then, as you say, the pace was super good from Bearman. And to have pressure from Antonelli, then it was Russell, then it was Piastri, didn't crack at all. Did we see any wide moment, any lock-up from Bearman? I don't remember it. So, yeah, I think, like you said, Sam, I think the class of rookie that we have in Formula One now, I know we can be harsh on them when, they've made, clear errors. But, I mean, you look at Bearman, you look at Hajar, you look at Antonelli, they're all operating at a level that even 10 years ago we didn't used to get for a rookie entering F1. I think that's how high the standard is now. So, yeah, I was super impressed by Bearman. At one point, I really thought we were going to get a Haas on the podium, and I think the world would have imploded, but not quite in the end. So that's equaling their best result, right? A P4. Yeah. So a shame, but even so, I think that's a superb result. And like I said, it's not like it was a race where there was a lot of attrition and loads of chaos happening. I mean, it was some things were going on, but not that chaotic. Not a lot of retirements. Bearman was there on pure merit. So fair play to him. It was a great result.
I think one of the biggest identifiers of that was the way he was hunting down Lewis Hamilton at the end of that first stint. I know that Hamilton botched his tyres a little with the flat spot, but it's a works Ferrari. Hamilton was third in qualifying. The pace was still there to be seen. And even with a slightly worn tyre, you'd like to think that Lewis Hamilton would be able to keep the gap up. And I even said in our Discord, at the point where he was given that 10-second penalty, oh, it's okay. He's got a 5-second gap to Bearman already. Surely with the lack of drama now in front of him, he'll be able to eke that out a bit more. While by the time he pits, it might be 8 or 9 seconds, and it'll basically be mitigated. No, Ollie Bearman come the time of the pit stop is 1.2 seconds behind Lewis Hamilton. It's just reeled him in. It was real pace. Bearman was really fantastic.
I haven't seen anything about this, but I feel like Hamilton had some sort of issue on that last in-lap because he dropped the time to Bearman like that. I thought like he was going to go out the race, like how quickly he was dropping that time. Maybe, I don't know if it was a puncture or something. I feel like we'd have heard about it if it was. But yeah, Bearman, that pace was genuine. And we asked the question in the qualifying review yesterday. I kind of highlighted that his FP2 pace looked really weirdly good for a Haas, thinking maybe it's low fuel. It wasn't. I think that pace was just really genuine. I'll echo what you both have said about how opportunistic he was after the what we're now calling the Mexican kerfuffle ahead of him.
Oh yeah,
yeah, we're calling that. I just think the way that you have to be that way when these cars are so close to each other now, you have to take every opportunity you get, and he did. And the way in which he held off Piastri, Mercedes, it didn't matter. Hey, credit to Haas as well, because we were laughing at them earlier in the season when we had the F175 reveal and we saw a video of them battling a Red Bull. And we were like, what are you talking about? You've never battled a Red Bull. They were just, they were predicting, they were manifesting this race where Bearman goes up the inside of Verstappen and does so very successfully. Strategically, I think they played it right. I know that they were maybe forced into doing it thanks to all the other cars behind pitting. I think Verstappen gobbles him alive if he stays out on those medium tyres, and in which case he goes back to P4 anyway, and suddenly he's having to defend on inferior tyres to Piastri, the Mercedes. He might well have fallen to P7 or so if he stays out there. So I think the 2-stop was the right call for him. But even if it wasn't a podium, excellent performance. What about the two Mercedes? So they end up 6th and 7th. Not the best results. They fall back a little bit on where they qualified. But perhaps the biggest talking point from the Mercedes was which one was going to finish ahead of who. Antonelli eventually ends up ahead of George Russell, but not after some team orders controversy, Sam. A very vocal George Russell on team radio. What did you make of all that?
Absolute comedy gold, mate. That was just absolute theatrics from George Russell over the radio. To exclaim so loudly that you've got a McLaren right up your arse over full radio is just sensational levels of banter. Loved it. So, tricky one. I think Russell also... Did Russell take to the grass on that one, or was it Antonelli that went over the grass? One of them went over the grass. It's Antonelli, yes.
I actually think the whole field did at this point, and I think they all did.
Russell was the only one that didn't, because he was complaining about it.
That's so true. He whinged all day long, didn't he? Good Lord. The pace just wasn't there for Mercedes, and they did a good job at holding off the likes of Piastri for a long time. Hamilton didn't really get near them in the second stint, although I do think his heart was gone by the point that the 10-second penalty had been delivered. You get that close to your first podium in a Ferrari, then that happens. It's tough to keep up the motivation. But they kind of just settled after that point. They couldn't really catch the heart of Bearman, which is a worrying sign for Mercedes. It's worrying when Russell has been so good, and the fact that he thought he had such supreme pace over Antonelli only to get past him and make no indent in the difference between the gap between them in front is slightly worrying. Piastri pulls away from them, and when Piastri's been having a tough time, again, maybe that's a little worrying. But it's good to see that both those drivers have still got fight. They're both fully up for it. The way that Russell was trying to dictate the play of going, we've got a Haas and a Ferrari in front of us. We're fighting for a podium. Let me get at it. And then when Kimi realizes it isn't happening, he's straight on the radio. Give it back. Give it back. I want it back. I really appreciate that they're both so vocal about it and want to win. They want to be the team leader. But this just wasn't Mercedes' day. And whilst they're taking a little dent in their fight for second place, I don't think they care. I don't think they're bothered at all about who finishes second. Then they have to play that up for marketing. But I don't think it's anything that's in their minds right now. So I don't think they'll be too disheartened. I think they'll try and use a lot of this as research as to where to improve moving forward. But it could have been a lot worse. It could have been a lot worse for them.
I just think the way this race panned out was not the way in which it needed to pan out for Mercedes and what they were trying to do strategically, because Russell was the quicker of the two drivers and he ended up behind as a result of everything that happened. And also with the tyres, again, going back to, you need to be able to survive with the worst tyres when you have them and utilize the best tyres when you have them. The soft tyre was so far clear of both the medium and the hard today, but when Mercedes were on that soft tyre, they weren't able to effectively use it because they were stuck behind Max Verstappen, who was surviving on those mediums. So they were kind of left in this strategic no man's land where they can't really pit because they're on the tyres that they need to be on at this point, but also they don't have the top speed in order to make the overtakes, and that really cost them in this race. Whereas the McLarens, the Ferraris, Max Verstappen seemed to have enough grunt down the straight to be able to make moves and to defend. Mercedes just seemed to be lacking when it came to straight line speed. That really hurt them. And ultimately this whole Antonelli versus Russell thing, I agreed with commentary in that if you're going to make the call, just make it a little bit earlier and see if Russell can make anything happen. As it happened, he couldn't, and they switched the positions, but I think they were a little indecisive on that. Harry, your thoughts on the Merc battle?
The not knowing what to do with swapping them around really wound me up, because not because I've got a care which way around they are, but just stick to your guns. There was George was going at it. How many radio messages did we hear from him about Piastri being in near around his bottom area? A lot, and it was clear he had more pace than Antonelli. But Mercedes were like, nope, no thank you was one of the replies to it from his race engineer. I'm like, I'm not sure I agree with it, but fine. You like, no, I don't. We don't believe that's the right thing to do. Only like 10 laps later to then swap them around anyway. What's the point of that? But why are you bothering by then? Because Russell's used all the best of his tyre life, as we then saw. He got in front of Antonelli, couldn't do anything with it anyway. I was just like, you're so late to the game here, Mercedes. What was the point of swapping them around? And obviously later on, Antonelli quite rightly was like, so when are we swapping back then? Is it now? Is it now? Which I like.
Give me.
Give me, please.
Come on.
It was just a bit slow on the uptake. So that was that just annoyed me. I'd rather they'd stuck to their guns and been like, no, we said no, so shut up and get on with it. Which Russell by that point had kind of given up the game. He was like, and then by the time they let him pass, we heard the message being like, oh, all right, fine then, because even I think he realized it was too late by then. So that was annoying. But yeah, pace wise, they weren't really there. You're right, they did a good job to keep Piastri behind in the first part of the race, but they couldn't do much with Verstappen in front of them, and then couldn't do anything about Bearman either. So kind of no man's land, as you said, Ben. There wasn't really a huge amount they could do. They were sort of just fighting amongst themselves, which they literally were.
Tiny Mining, absolutely love the race engineer coming on going, you are free to overtake him.
That was good.
Yeah, really enjoyed that.
This is my point. There was like overtaking then, and no thank you. Why so savage just to let him go anyway? What was the point of winding him up for that? Like, no reason.
It's a very fair point. What did Lewis Hamilton get in the end? Was it a 10-second time penalty?
Just the 10, yep. Just the 10. Pretty sure it was more, actually. Pretty light.
Wow, I mean, that's a good way to start the segment, Sam.
Yeah, I mean, off. Quite frankly, it's such a joke of a penalty. I know I'm ever so slightly biased. I know we all know that I like the Lulu, but
wow.
But this, I think, was a bit audacious. But it was played on both parts so terribly. Yeah, he made a hash of going down that kind of that run off that safety road. And I stand by the fact that it is the most audaciously narrow safety road I've seen in a long time in Formula One, between two bits of grass either side. But the penalty wasn't for this. It was for leaving the track and getting an advantage. So why Ferrari, and Karun rightly brought this up on the Sky commentary, why they didn't just say, look, you're all right. You kept the place. Just back off. Give a couple of seconds back. Let them get onto your back a little bit so we can make sure that we've got a case to argue when it comes into the stewards room if anything does come down the line. For me, 10 seconds is so harsh. 5, I've been completely fair with. He deserved a penalty, I think, for not giving some of the time back. But when you then compare it to the other incidents that took place around the racetrack, I just think this is totally blown out of proportion. Leclerc, as I said, should have had a 5-second time penalty for gaining advantage. Verstappen did give the advantage back, although no penalty for the largest dive bomb I've seen for a while, going into turn 1 on Lewis Hamilton. And then Carlos Sainz picks up a smaller time penalty for the first speeding in the pit lane incident, and then a much larger penalty for the second speeding in a pit lane incident. So either no consistency, or you've offended once and then re-offended.
I think
really
that was
down.
It's like a second offence, so it's a.
Is that in the rule book? Is that how we play it? I don't know.
Yeah.
Fine. It just feels like, again, the stewarding is so inconsistent, and I do think that this, unfortunately, kind of knocked the wind out of him a little bit, and he wasn't interested after that, unfortunately. So maybe he wouldn't have got third anyway. Max was an absolute monster on that soft tyre right at the end. I think he probably would have got past at least one of the Ferraris had they been running cleanly. But it was a real shame to see it happen so early.
Did you agree or disagree with the penalty, Harry?
Oh God. Yes, I agree with the penalty, because he's gained a clear advantage, and right, there's a case here for I don't think that Lewis Hamilton gained that much of an advantage that it's worthy of a 10-second penalty. But there's also a part of me that thinks Hamilton and Ferrari in this case just not playing the game very well. I'm not saying I like the game that we have to play now, but just play it a bit better. I've seen only one driver go off that escape road this weekend, and irony of ironies, it was Lewis Hamilton in practice. And the fact that he didn't make that, fine, they let him off on that. But then, as you said, Sam, why are you not backing off? Hamilton, why are you not backing off? Because it's clear you've cut almost 2 corners here, and gain that advantage have a think about it. But B, most importantly, why are Ferrari not saying, just back off, son, slow down? You've gained a lot of time here. So I agree with the penalty. I think 10 seconds is harsh, as you said, because given the fact we had Leclerc at turn one and there was, Verstappen as well, the fact that there was nothing there, but it was 10 seconds for Hamilton seems quite inconsistent on that front. But yeah, I was just a bit like, what? Play the game better. What are you doing, guys? Because it was so clear how much time he gained from that. And it wasn't like he was forced off. I know he was sort of in a kerfuffle, as the Mexican kerfuffle as it shall now be known. But it wasn't like Verstappen forced him off the road. Hamilton had already locked up and was going straight on anyway. So I'm not sure they can play that card. And so much so that he ended up almost at 2 corners beyond that. I don't think that's a viable excuse. So just a bit of a shame, because I think Hamilton was P3. Yes, there was Verstappen closing in on the end, and maybe he wouldn't be able to hold on, but you don't know until we get to that moment in the race. So what looked like it might have been a debut podium for Ferrari, proper podium, not a sprint one. What looking like a proper podium for Ferrari this year, it has not transpired again, which is a shame, because I think Ferrari had some good pace this weekend. As you said, Sam, once he'd had the penalty and dropped back, it just seemed like his head dropped and he wasn't really in it anymore. So I agree that it was penalty worthy. I think the penalty's harsh though, given what happened to other people.
Yeah, these sorts of time penalties are so difficult to judge, because the benefit of getting the overtake done, or in this case, keeping the position, can be worth way more than 5 seconds. It could be worth more than 10 seconds, depending on the situation. So I would have probably leaned more towards 5 than 10. I didn't have too much of a problem with it. But again, my bigger problem, as you've both attested to, is the lack of communication and how they handled this. I mean, when you heard Lewis Hamilton's team radio later on, when he was told about the time penalty, he was clearly confused as to why, because he's saying, like, there's no grip out there. Like, that's not the issue, Lewis, that you didn't have any grip out there. It's that you managed to maintain the advantage after the move was done. That's why you've got the penalty. So clearly that hadn't been relayed to Hamilton, and maybe that's a little bit on Hamilton for not knowing and not figuring it out as he's on the racetrack. And it's definitely on Ferrari for not communicating why he'd been given the penalty. And hey, if their communication was better, they probably wouldn't have got a penalty to begin with. So classic Ferrari there. It's just a shame, because I do think, at least early on in that Grand Prix, there wasn't that much between himself and Charles Leclerc. As soon as that had sorted itself out, and he had, well, I say sorted itself out, before the penalty was, taken into account, he seemed to be able to maintain a similar gap to Leclerc. It wasn't really moving that much. So I don't know whether he would have finished 3rd or 4th, but he was in line for a very good finish here without the penalty. It's a shame how it all unraveled. And I'm pretty sure we'll hear more about this over the next day or two. I'm pretty sure there was some damage on that car incurred from going off, because as soon as you get to that last lap before the pit stop, and then everything after that, the pace kind of just disappeared, and he wasn't able to put any pressure on the likes of Piastri or the Mercedes duo, despite the fact that he lined up pretty well against them earlier on in the same race. So yeah, more disappointing than anything. This felt like a bit of an opportunity. In the midfield, so we haven't really discussed yet Esteban Ocon getting a couple of points for Haas, which I'm sure he would have taken before the day, but you wouldn't have told him about the P4 of his teammate. Gabriel Bortoleto recovering from a Q1 exit all the way to get 1 point in 10th. Yuki Tsunoda, Alex Albon, Isaac Hadjar just outside the top 10. A bit of a dealer's choice, Sam. Anything there you want to particularly focus on?
Yeah, I just want to talk about Tsunoda. I'll let you guys have all the positives. But for me, when your teammate, I get your teammate is Max Verstappen, there's a chance he could be a 5-time world champion come the end of this season. He's on exactly the same strategy as you, and he ends up less than a second behind second place, and arguably would have claimed second place if it hadn't been for a poorly timed VSC. By the way, I've just watched Sainz's onboard replay, and it is the worst VSC I've ever seen in my life. Absolutely atrocious. We'll get onto that. We will get onto it.
Good.
Goodness me, indeed. I expect you to finish in the points, really. And you've got the updated car. You've got the new front wing that you've been running the old one since Silverstone. You've finally got all the bits that make sense. it seems like you've got a little bit of a lucky hand when Science takes the penalty. You move up to 10th place. There's a lot of them, the big Mexican kerfuffle, as we saw, are going through turn one. You've got to pick your way through that. That's your chance to make a move. Bearman moves up to P4. Where's Tsunoda? You got people around him falling back again. One place out of all of that around him. You just think that when you've got the preferred strategy and you're getting to run the lighter car in the cooler part of the day on the soft tyre that is the better tyre, and you still finish outside of the points, I just don't think it's good enough. And I think, whilst I think the coffin was already nailed, I think it's 6 feet under right now. I think it's game gone.
Not to fully defend Yuki Tsunoda here, but did you see how long his last stop took?
Was it 10 seconds?
Yeah, it wasn't a good one.
Or 12 seconds.
Oh,
yeah,
I mean, that's
just to cement it.
like the Undertaker just sitting back up in the coffin after hearing that.
You're welcome, Yuki. Off you go.
Well, since Sam has mentioned it and we are talking about the midfield, Harry, have you seen the VSC? Why it was brought out?
Yeah, for Carlos Sainz spinning in the stadium section, hitting the wall, and then politely putting it behind the barrier.
You've seen it from scientists on board. Yeah.
You're aware of it then? You've heard of it?
Like the juxtaposition of that and two marshals running in front of Liam Lawson. Where do we stand here, guys? What are we doing? Maybe they got scared into it. They're like, well, must be VSC because there's a car not moving. So VSC it. Red flag it, actually, just cancel the race.
I wish I had red flagged it. That would have been way more exciting. It was.
Come on now.
Or
red flags at end of races.
I would have taken a red flag like a 2-lap restart. Oh, wait about it.
Okay.
It looks to me, and I'm watching this as we're recording. Of course, we are recording directly after the Grand Prix. It looks like Sainz parks it up just short of being safe behind the barriers. It wouldn't take that much effort for a double wave yellow to just push him an extra 10 meters and then it's safe.
If that. Maybe 2 or 3 meters with two marshals open. Yeah. Double yellows would have done the job.
We're going to operate, obviously safety is paramount here. We're going to operate with some level of logic. In the, 10, 11 years of the Mexican GP being back on the calendar, when have you seen a car spin there? The likelihood of that then happening again whilst they're trying to clear this car away is I don't want to, the chances would be a million to none or something ridiculous. I don't know. But I think they were spooked into it given the whole Lawson Marshall thing. I don't know, but stupid.
That's getting investigated. That is atrocious.
Yeah.
See, nothing wrong with it. Just apart from the good thing on Twitter.
I love that there was just a quick yellow flag in that sector while that was happening. And they questioned it. There must be some debris on track. If I got short. No, there's just two men sprinting across the racetrack.
Debris. It's a person.
It wasn't King, it would have been.
Yikes. I mean, anything else from the midfield, Harry, that caught your eye? We had Bortoletto gain quite a few positions to scrape a point.
Yeah, Bortoletto 5 hours was quite good. I think Racing Bulls will be quite disappointed given where they ended up this weekend. So much pace and honking. We've gone for stinky ponging and honking.
That's all.
Well, who's who? I'll leave the list.
You decide.
My surname is close to honking, so I'm going to have to take that one.
That's true. Ben honking. I'm thinking. Harry Pongy. Pongy.
That's what they call me. But yeah, the Racing Bulls team will be disappointed because they had some real good pace this weekend. Obviously, did we ever see what happened to Liam Lawson? Damage on lap 1, but why?
Yeah, I got collision with the Williams, I think.
Yeah, just it doesn't look like much, does it? But I think it's when he rejoins because he was one of the 67,000 cars that went
6, 7. But yeah, so Lawson disappointing, and then Hadjar's pace just sort of dropped off during the race. Obviously, Bortoletto nabbed him for a point towards the end of it. So
great,
Racing was
by the way.
That one was a good battle. More disappointing because I put them in my fantasy team, but less said about that the better.
That's not back. I'll skink. Don't worry, mate. I'm gonna be going backwards.
There was a point.
I'm not. I didn't get minuses this week, so that's good.
He's learned how to play this game. There was a point where Hadjar, Tsunoda, and Bortoletto were kind of all closing in on one another. I had all 3 of them in my fantasy team, and I was like, If they all come together and crash, I'm just leaving this game. I'm not playing ever again.
How are you in the top 50 but putting Tsunoda in your team? I don't know how this game works. I've decided I don't understand the points.
No idea.
Big brain strat. Cheers, Lando Norris, by the way. Appreciate that. Should we do driver of the day, folks?
The verdict is in. You're the driver of the day. You're the driver of the day. You're good at driving.
The driver of the day went to Oliver Bearman in terms of the fan vote, although he got 40%, and it would have become 41 and then 42% as a result of the votes of David Croft and Karun Chandok in commentary, proving that they either don't understand percentages or think 100 people voting, and that's it. But
oh my goodness, that's like forgetting when they forgot that you get DRS from lapped cars as well. They completely forgot that rule existed.
Yep, that's the thing. Right, is Bearman getting your vote as well, Sam?
He's right up there, but he's not on the top step. As much as it was absolutely so good from him. No, Lando Norris, you don't win by over 30 seconds, and I think produce the best drive of the season without taking my driver of the day. So Lando, a champion's drive. It's the best way to put yourself in pole position for this championship. Driver of the day.
Harry?
Gone for Lando as well. Ollie Bearman, definitely a fair shout. I'd even shout out Leclerc as well. I know he was 30 seconds behind in the end, but I thought it was pretty solid drive. Didn't do, apart from not doing turn 1 and 2 or whatever. Apart from that, it was a solid drive. But yes, Norris, as I said, I'm not going to commit to it yet. Classic, but I think one of, if not his best race wins ever.
Yeah, Lando Norris for me. It's an easy top 2. Like Bearman and Norris are easily the top 2 for me. But I'm going to have to give it to Lando Norris for how comfortable it was in terms of that margin. Worst driver of the day.
Get in the bin. Worst driver of the day. Bin. Worst driver of the day. You suck at driving.
Harry, who have you gone for?
I'm going to give it to Carlos Sainz, which might be 2 in a row for Sainz, but was a bit stinky. Bit stinky at the end. Well, not at the end, for kind of most of it. I know he had the penalty, but he got penalty for speeding in the pit lane. Did he get 2 penalties for that? It happened twice.
Yep.
Stuff. And then spinning off, as I just said earlier on, spinning off in the stadium section, which I'm not sure I've seen anyone do in 10 years, and crashing out the race. Real lame. Real stinky. That is stinky. That's top of the past stinkiness. So, Carlos Sainz.
Sam?
Carlos Sainz sprang in the pit lane once. He sprang in the pit lane twice. And then he gave the Formula One world the biggest blue balling we've ever seen. So you, sir, are the worst driver of the day. That sucked. Why'd you have to do that to us, Carlos? Yeah, I mean, he might have had an issue with the car, but I don't care. That was terrible. I hate that you brought out the VSC.
Yeah, that's the only thing that's tempting me not to pick Carlos Sainz, is that I'm not sure I'm ready to blame him yet for the pit lane stuff, because him doing it once where it looked like there was a clear issue and then doing it again, I'm assuming it wasn't on him, those two. We'll see how that plays out.
Just slow down sooner, though. You have enough time. Just slow down sooner the second time.
I feel like he knows that, and he must have been after the first one. I just feel like a driver of that experience isn't going to commit that without some sort of issue. Twice in the same race just feels weird. But we'll probably hear from Williams before our next episode on that. The other contender for me was Yuki Tsunoda, just based on how far off he was from his teammate. And he was, I know he had that slow pit stop, but I was expecting him at least to catch up to Bortoletto and Ocon. And the fact that he got past Hadjar, but apart from that, he didn't make much progress. Speaking of Hadjar, he really struggled in that second stint. So I'll go with Tsunoda for now, but maybe that changes in the next day or so. Big brain Strat.
Bob, we're going to need you to box for wets. What? It's not even raining out. What are you talking about? Yeah, and Bob, if you get a chance, let your teammate pass you. What? He crashed out. He's not even in the race.
What have you got here, Sam?
Yeah, that whole Mercedes, whatever was going on there, was just sensational. Don't let him pass. Overtake him. You're not coming through. Don't do it. Oh, go on then. No difference. Swap back. Like, you're just costing yourself time and tripping over each other for absolutely no reason whatsoever. Usually it's Ferrari we laugh at for this. Mercedes, well done for being the butt of the joke today. Yep, brilliant communication.
I'm going to go with Alex Albon. Complaining that he had the worst strategy of all time. Now, in fairness, he was on the hard tyre, which turned out to be absolute garbage. But I got to be honest with you, Alex, when you're starting down in, 17th place, you don't give your team too many options for your strategy. And ultimately, it seemed all right. Like, he got back up to 12th and he was on the back of that fight in front of him. I don't know, man. Might be on you, this one. Harry?
It's not really a strategy, but I'm going to give it to GP and Red Bull, just like leaning on the button and telling everyone what they were going to do.
Or I can hear everything.
Intentional.
Or is it that big a brain strat?
Intentional.
Yeah.
If they've actually done that intentionally, it's a dummy. That is sensational.
Could be. Hannah Schmidt's like, all right, now lean on the button and say you just like confused about one or two. Stop. Go on, GP.
You just don't question her. No questioning Hannah. Like,
all right, I'll do it, Hannah. Sorry.
Sam, what was your moment of the race?
I've already mentioned it, and it was George Russell explaining it. There is a McLaren in and around his bottom for a lot of the Grand Prix.
It was bleeped out. Maybe he didn't say that word. Maybe it was a different one.
Hey, bottom isn't a swear word, so he definitely didn't say bottom.
That's probably true. Imagine if they bleeped that. That would have been quite funny.
Weirdly hilarious.
Harry, what was your moment of the race?
We've already mentioned this one too, but Lewis Hamilton's race engineer coming up with the radio to explain he had a penalty and concluding it with, "We are not happy." Sure,
I think he's absolutely terrifying of Lewis Hamilton at the moment. I didn't tell him the truth. I'm also not happy about it.
Because he doesn't tell him anything. Did you hear the radio after qualifying, by the way, where he's like, I don't know what that was good for. Was it like P2? And he was like, yeah, you were really close to Charles. He's like, yeah, what position? Like, just say.
Charles P18. Be more clear. The man has had, all right, that's an off-race topic, but he is woeful at communication.
Oh, man. I had a lot of contenders for this moment of the race. But to narrow it down, I almost went to Alpine. The fact that they finished like 2 tenths apart, but also 40 seconds behind anyone else is just fantastic. But my moment of the race, you could have sat me down before this Grand Prix and given me 100,000 guesses as to who was going to wave the checkered flag at the end of this race. And Evander Holyfield would not have been on that list. Why?
Might be the most random flag wave we've had for a while.
Evander Holyfield's cam as well. We had a separate camera just on him.
I mean, that guy looks swole. Fair play to you, my guy.
Sometimes you can understand these flag wavers and you're like, well, they're trying to further their career, or they've got some sort of loose relation to F1, or there's some sort of sponsorship thing. What on earth does Evander Holyfield have to do with F1?
Or the Mexican Grand Prix, to be specific.
Or the Mexican GP.
I weirdly would have got like Vegas, if there was some boxing thing going. No, okay, I'm with you. Bizarre.
I think sure. Why not F1?